Oh, my nose is stuffy. I don't think I'm going to be able to sing.
Oh, do you want to reschedule the podcast?
Never. Welcome to Casper's Song Zoo. Casper's Song Zoo. We write a song for you.
Hi, Pam.
Oh, hi, Dan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
Thanks for asking. Feeling good. I'm
Good.
excited to be behind the mic.
Yes.
That's my happy place.
We did, you guys don't know this, but we did take a little break before recording a new episode. What did you do during that break, Dan?
You know, I worked my day job.
That's
so
right.
I manage a hair salon. And I did a lot of tarot pulls for myself. I'm also a tarot reader.
You sure are.
And I don't know. I've also been watching a lot of near-death experience videos on YouTube.
Is
That's
that
been
where your
my favorite.
algorithm's at?
Yeah, it's a lot of that. And reruns of Rescue 911. Do you remember that show?
I do.
And William Shatner hosted. Mm-hmm. It's really scary because they don't always have a happy ending.
Oh, sure.
They all make the call to 911. That's the through line. But how it ends is
I think that's why I can't watch Unsolved Mysteries, because going into it, you know they're unsolved.
That's
and
right.
for me, it's like, no, I don't want to live with that. I don't want to go to bed with that.
That's how you go to bed.
No.
I know, that's hard. It's hard. I can't watch a lot of that before bed. I have to space it out. I'll do an episode and then I'll mix in a near-death experience video.
It reminds me of certain like horror movies where I do wish sometimes I could go into it knowing if the main character lives, but then sometimes the fun is like not knowing.
That's the mystery.
That's the horror.
That's the horror of it. The suspense. If you knew, it wouldn't be suspenseful.
That's right. But I do think there is a website that you can type the movie into and they tell you like the worst stuff that happens.
Really?
Because you know how I have my limits with baby deaths and animal deaths.
Yes, right.
I can't watch an animal die on screen.
No.
I can watch the aftermath, like in Family Ties, like you know that show Family Ties where the dog dies.
Yeah.
In Funny Games where the dog the lifeless body falls out of the back of the hatch. Like it's very upsetting, but I can't watch that dog being beat with the golf club, which luckily happens
I didn't even imagine
off screen.
That
Spoiler
happened.
alert.
But I guess that is how that happened.
Funny Games, great horror movie.
It's really good.
But anyway, yeah, you can type Funny Games into this website and they tell you. It's like, I think specifically for animal harm. I think that's what it is.
What an interesting website.
I love that. We'll put it in our description for this episode because I'll look it up and find out.
Thank you.
What it is. Now today is a very unique episode because it is a musical interview episode and we're so excited.
Our first interview.
And I'm just gonna get started. We deep dive into songwriting, singers and songwriters. We love talking about them. And today we get to talk to one. Our guest is someone whose voice carries the weight of lived experience and whose songs have carved deep grooves into the American folk landscape. Cliff Eberhardt, also my uncle.
Aww.
I'm just so excited. I'm so proud. Cliff Eberhardt is a singer-songwriter and storyteller whose work spans decades, blending heartache and hope with masterful guitar work and soul-stirring lyrics. And if you've ever heard this guy perform live, he is also hilarious. He's like a stand-up comedian musician. From his early days on the New York folk circuit alongside legends like Sean Colvin, John Gorka, to his powerful solo albums like The Long Road and 500 Miles, Cliff's music has always been intimate, honest, and utterly human. Today, we're going to talk about his journey, his songwriting process, and maybe even get a little peek into his personal dating life.
Ooh.
Because he's dated some pretty high profile people.
Yeah.
Which was not as exciting to me as a kid, but when I grew up and learned who those people were and their body of work, I was like, oh my gosh, I was around for that. So settle in, tune up your ears, and let's get into it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you and see you. Hi.
Hi, dear.
You do. You look great.
Oh, boy. I feel like the south end of a northbound chicken.
You're aging beautifully.
Like a fine wine.
Boy. Yeah. I am aging. That's for sure.
That's for sure. I'm 40 now.
Wow.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
I moved here when I was 40.
Oh.
Up to
In-
Massachusetts.
To Massachusetts. Do you still live in that same place right by the river?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
I've been here 31 years.
Wow, that's a commitment.
Well, it's laziness. I have a really good deal here.
Yeah.
I rent this, and it was bought by the county about 10 years after I moved here for low-income housing. And although I don't qualify, they still get funded by the government for this house.
Oh.
So I hardly pay anything.
So I would make that work too. I would stay as well.
That's where you're going to end.
That's a good deal.
Well, it depends on what happens with this presidency.
It's pretty scary right now.
It's really scary.
Yeah. How are you handling it, like, emotionally?
I'm drinking a lot.
Yeah.
We marched yesterday. I mean, we gathered with our town, and our town's 2,500 people, and there are over 500 people there, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
And I do it locally because it's important for me to meet my neighbors.
Sure.
And like-minded people.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean, I just got back last week from a 3-month tour, and so we don't know what's going to happen because a lot of those theaters are funded by, the NEA, which is gone now.
Yeah, that's so wild.
So I don't know if they'll do it through just the amount of people you can draw, because we did draw very well. We sold out 80% of the shows, but you never know. So we don't know what's going to happen next year.
That's so scary. I mean, it's like, I feel like that's the life of a folk artist, right? It's just not knowing what's going to happen next.
That's pretty much the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except for this tour makes us all enough where it's our nut for the whole year.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we've been doing it we did it for 10 years in the early 90s.
Oh, wow. It's the same group?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
And then we started doing it again 6 years ago. So we do it every year, and it really puts a cap on worrying. It's not like I have to depend on playing every week.
Sure. Well, first of all, we are so grateful that you've decided to do this interview with us. Our podcast is all about singing and songwriting, and we thought you were the perfect first guest to have.
Oh no.
As you know, I've accumulated a bit of a following with my singing chihuahua. Yeah. Not the dream I had as a youth, but things
life happens.
Things happen. That's right?
You know that only 1% of people get to do what they set out to do.
That's real.
And that's why it's a celebration, and also there's a lot of negativity that goes with it. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of jealousy out there.
Well, especially with social media, the amount of trolls out there and the amount of people who are just bored and want to see happy people be unhappy is insurmountable.
Well, with me, it's the amount of people that want my job and think that I'm keeping them from doing this, which is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, right. Yeah. What are your thoughts about like social media, TikTok, Instagram, all those sites?
I just use Facebook and Instagram for advertising.
Yeah.
I post pretty regularly just to keep people's interest up, but I mostly post about shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's there's promoters don't promote anymore.
Sure.
So the musicians are the people that have to promote.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a value in musicians who are just starting out? Do you think there's a value in social media for them?
I do, but they have to be careful.
Yeah.
The bragging can ruin people's opinion of you.
That's right. Yeah.
Like people who post songs when they're not good songs and not good singers, and humble brag about how great their gift is, makes some people really turned off.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't post a lot of songs. I don't.
You don't? No.
I used to. During the pandemic, I posted, not mine, I posted songs that really influenced me. And I started getting so much negativity that I stopped.
It's just too much. I mean, look, I'm very lucky. 90% of the people who comment on our videos just like love them, they have nothing but nice things to say, but then you get those jerks and it's like you focus so much on those negative comments.
You do.
Yeah.
I posted a Frank Sinatra song and the first comment was, he was a mobster.
Amazing.
So Cliff, do you have things in your tool belt that when you get things in, if you read a negative comment, or do you just stay away from it altogether? And that would go for like reviews as well. Like how much do you even listen to comments about yourself? None. I think that's good.
Yeah, you're probably got a good mental health situation.
Yeah.
Like one of the people I tour with is named John Gorka, and we wanted to write a book called Totally Inappropriate Things Said to Me Before, After, and During Shows.
I love this.
Like people will shout out negative shit at you when you're playing.
That's just insane.
It is insane.
Yeah.
It's like heckling a comic, but why at a folk show? I don't understand.
Well, I think the folk audience is not as sophisticated as some.
Huh.
I'd be singing a song and somebody would yell, "We love Lucy Kaplansky" in the middle of my song. I'm like, she's up next. You know?
Oh, man.
I think it's interesting to note, I know we were talking a little bit about the political times that we're in and the climate, but I think that this is, especially for the folk genre, the kind of like stoking to a fire that normally produces great art. Would you agree, disagree with that? Do you think the time?
I think, well, it's like Dylan's protest songs have a long shelf life because they're not about a specific thing. He wasn't saying, I'm against the war in Vietnam. He was saying the times they are changing, or a hard rain's going to fall.
There you go.
When you do subject matter, like when 9/11 happened, the folk radio station in New York, WFUV, asked people to send in songs they had written about 9/11. They got 10,000 songs sent to them, and not one was good.
Oh, yeah.
We all know that the towers fell.
Yeah.
Without poetry or metaphor, songs that object to something socially have no meaning. Their shelf life is a day.
They only exist, in that exact moment. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, tell us a little bit about like your start. So obviously you've been playing guitar since you were a toddler, 5 years old, and your dad, my grandfather, who who passed away before I was born.
He passed away 47 years ago this week.
Yeah, before Jen was born too.
Yeah, the year Jen was born, 79.
My sister Jennifer, for our listener.
My niece.
Your niece.
Friend of the show. Yeah.
Yes. And so you were playing very early, and then is that always what you wanted to do? Music was just always the thing?
When I was 7, I asked my dad, I was looking at a Kingston Trio album, and I noticed there were names after the songs. And I said to my dad, "What's these names for?" And he says, "Well, those are the fellers that wrote the song, and they get paid for it." So I told him I want to be a songwriter when I was 7, and he bought me a toy dentist kit the next day.
Oh, George.
Yeah. I think just because of my upbringing, and I wasn't happy, and it was a place where I could go and feel like being me alone in my room with my guitar, I was set on this course from a very early age.
Right. Yeah. For real. And so how old were you when you wrote like your first real song?
Well, I wrote Good Night, which is my most covered song. I mean, more people have recorded it than any other of my songs. I wrote that when I was 16.
Wow. Very cool. So The Long Road, when did that come out?
I wrote that in 1989, the year before the record came out. I was on tour. I did a Woodstock reunion tour with Melanie, Richie Havens, and the band, and I was the pass-around guitar player and harmony singer. I had to quit because I got signed to Windham Hill Records. I had to quit the tour, and Richie said, "You got to write us a duet to sing on the records." So that's why I wrote The Long Road, was for him.
And it's such a good track. Mm-hmm. I mean, I grew up with that album. We all did, all your nieces and your nephew. We grew up with it, and those songs, they stayed with us for so many years. They were part of our makeup, that first album in particular, for sure.
Well, that song, I had gone up to Richie's office the day we were going to record it. It was my birthday, 1990, 35 years ago. And I said, I want to teach you the song, you know, and teach you your part. And he said, just sing it for me once. And I sang it for him once, and he said, I'm going to be doing the choruses. And I said, no, I want you to answer me. And he goes, no, I'm doing the choruses because you need the voice of God in the chorus. And the recording is the first time we tried it out. We never sung it together. And it was one take.
Wow.
And if you listen, the band comes in halfway through. They just walked into the studio while we were in isolation booths and started playing. And it was one take.
That's
I
unbelievable.
mean, our hair was standing straight up.
I bet. Yeah.
I mean, everybody was crying. It was a really spiritual thing that happened in that studio.
Is that one of your most memorable recording sessions?
Oh, it is the most memorable.
The number one. Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And Richie Havens, like back then, was pretty big. Like he was a big deal.
Especially.
So was Melanie. So was the band. I mean,
yeah.
When I played with the band one night, Levon Helm, the lead singer, got sick, and he asked me to do the vocals. We were in Italy, so I got to do all those great songs, like The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down and The Shape I'm In. And when I was leaving the stage, Richie was standing at the top of the stairs. He said, "You fucking levitated." And I believe I did.
Wow. So who's one of the, out of all the artists you've worked with, and you've worked with many, many artists, who's been your favorite collaboration?
Oh, it was Richie for sure.
Oh, Richie. Wow. Okay.
Richie and Tom Paxton and Odetta and Dave Van Ronk were my mentors when I was young. It was a time when folk music was dying, a very quick death, and all of them were available. They weren't working. So they would hang out at all the open mics and give us all advice. Wow. And the greatest advice I got when I was 25 was, or 24, was from Tom Paxton. And I'd written this really navel-gazing song about, you know, my heart got broken, and the next verse it was still broken, and the third verse it was broken again. And and the fourth verse there was no repairing it. And he came up to me, he says, "Listen, kid, I don't want you to sing me your diary. I want you to sing me my diary."
Oh, I love that.
And I wrote it down on my arm, and it changed the way I wrote ever since then.
That's great advice.
Yeah, that's really poetic.
Well, it gets you away from journalistic writing, which I hate.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you take in all different circumstances in your life and not just about one incident that happened to you.
Right. Because you're trying to relate to your listeners, you know, you want you want that connection.
It's such a fine line, yeah.
I think that the new generation of writers really want you to know about their life, which is a very different thing. And so there's a lot less poetry and a lot less metaphor, you know, and just I was driving to the store when I did this and I did that.
Yeah, and I told Jack this. I was just listening to that Taylor Swift song.
I try not to gender my songs. I feel so strong about not being that specific.
Sure. Well, it's worked. It's definitely worked out for you. Tell us about the Fast Folk Music Cooperative.
Well, it was the most uncooperative bunch of people I've ever worked with.
Perfect response.
What happened was it came out of, there was this guy named Jack Hardy who just hated me. And well, I was good. And he tried to really keep really good people from playing, which is not very well known. But he belonged to a writer. I moved to New York to join a songwriter group that I read about in the New York Times called the Cornelia Street Song Exchange. And I went the very first week I was in New York, and I played there. It lasted for 2 years, and every Monday night I would go. And a lot of famous people came out of that group, like the Roaches, Suzanne Vega.
Love her.
David Massagill, who else? Sean Colvin, Lucy Kaplansky. They were all part of that group. And Jack finally was kind of kicked out for being kind of nasty. And he formed his own group. And then he started the co-op because a lot of the clubs wouldn't hire him. A story is not known by most people. They look up to him in heroic, you know, he told a good story. But anyway, they opened up this club called Speakeasy, and he started booking it. And then he formed the co-op, and the co-op took over the booking, which was great. And we would make a record every month on vinyl and send a record every month with new songs and a booklet with it, 12 albums a year. And then we also did concerts all around the country.
Sure.
And I mean, people like Lyle Lovett recorded a couple songs for that, Nancy Griffith, all before they were.
Wow.
Well, Nancy sings on my second record.
Right.
So Now You're on My Home. We were really good friends. So I knew all those guys way before anything happened.
What album, other than obviously your debut album, what album stands out to you? Like, which album do you feel most connected to?
I like 12 Songs of Good and Evil,
Mm-hmm.
and I love The High Above and the Down Below.
So good. So good.
I've been spreading that gospel for over a decade.
That album was recorded live. That was us rehearsing, and the head of the record company said, I'm just going to keep this. We thought we were just rehearsing.
Oh, whoa.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
What a demo.
Yeah.
It's
demo.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, he did that on purpose. He was like, after it was over, he said, I had that planned all along, that you were just going to go with the tunes and see what happens.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a question about the performing versus writing. Do you have a favorite part of being a songwriter, whether it be the writing part of it, the recording in the studio versus performing them live? Do you love it all?
No.
That's right. That's right. Be honest.
I love the editing part.
Yeah.
I
Same.
edit for months. You know, I never write a song and put it out there immediately.
Mm.
And I edit and edit and edit and edit, and I take it for a walk. If your meter's wrong and you're walking, reciting your lyrics, you'll know.
Mm.
You know, there are people that will shoehorn in an extra syllable because they want to say a word. And it always stands out like a sore thumb to me. You know, it gets me away from the song. I go like, why the hell did they do that?
Yeah.
Or when they put the verb in the wrong place, you know, and they start Yoda speak, you know, to the car I went.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your most consistent process in songwriting?
It's a funny thing. When I write for plays, it's a completely different process. But when I write for me, it's usually pretty inspirational. Like the song taps me on my shoulder and it's pretty much there.
Wow.
I just write it out. It's like somebody else is writing it, you know?
Do you find that lyrics and melody are coming at the same time, or do they
Yeah.
sometimes? Yeah, that's great.
I mean, I usually start with a lyric, but I grab the guitar or the piano immediately.
Yeah.
Because I think the melody propels the lyrics too. Like In Your Face, that bridge would not be that bridge. You know, no one ever warns you. That would not be that without the melody.
Right.
Of going, you know, to that third, it opens up the whole song. So nobody will write a melody like that if they just write all the lyrics first.
Right.
That doesn't. I don't believe that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like what Bob Dylan said to me when he said, "Ain't it a bitch we don't write our own songs."
I love that.
Do you hang out with Bob Dylan a lot back in the day?
In '88, I did for about 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. His daughter and I are friends, Desi.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a sweetheart. So tell us, we touched on this briefly about modern music and modern artists and them kind of losing that metaphor aspect to their songwriting. Are there any popular artists that you actually enjoy, that you like, that stand out to you?
No. I'm kind of stuck in the past anyway.
Yeah.
The style of writing that I do is definitely a thing of the past. You know, like when we just did this 30 city tour, there was nobody under 50 that came to see the show.
Yeah.
You know, the places had to have ramps.
That's just accessibility. We love that.
That's a call ahead.
Well, I'm using them now.
Yeah.
No, it's just that, I mean, I don't hate these younger writers. It's just, I don't feel, I like a song. There's a DJ that Louise knows that said, I don't want to think your song is pretty good. I want your song to change my life.
Mm-hmm.
And if a song brings tears to my eyes, I know I'm listening to greatness.
Mm.
And I haven't had that in a while.
Well, a lot of the songs that Dan and I write together are like the melody, the harmonies are very pretty. The lyrics, the lyrics are insane because they're about animals or a dog's perspective on something. Like we wrote a song about garbage, like literal trash, but it's so pretty. The melody is just so lovely, but it's, you know, how a dog feels about going through the trash.
That's
well, you know, I teach at these song schools in the summer, and I teach melody because I read this great article in the New York Times years ago that said you only retain 15% of the lyric the first time you hear a song. but you maintain over 70% of the melody.
Yeah.
So I have people that come up to me and they request a song of mine, and they'll hum me the song. They don't remember the lyric at all.
Yeah.
Are you able to identify them?
Huh?
Are you able to identify the song by them humming it?
Yeah, it's Always Your Face.
Oh.
I was gonna say it's my personal favorite
That's
as well.
your favorite? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We have a version together. Pam and I sang.
We did. You know, I love recruiting my friends into covering that song.
Yeah, that's only been covered by one artist, though. Believe it or not, a guy named Russ Taff, who's a country artist.
Oh, interesting.
He released it in '90.
Did he add a bit of a twang to it?
No, he added a full orchestra and a choir.
Wow.
You should look it up. It's on YouTube.
I will, for sure.
Russ
awesome.
Taff.
Tell us about Found Objects.
That's a cover album that I'd been recording for 10 years, probably. I have a studio upstairs.
Yeah.
And, I love playing old songs when I'm sitting around. I play old songs to see if a new one knocks on the door.
Sure.
So it's kind of like saying grace to great writers. So I just started recording them, and I had, 10 or 11 of them, and it was the pandemic, so I just put it out.
Yeah. Do you enjoy doing covers? You've sprinkled them throughout some of your
albums. That's all I do when I'm home.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of my inspiration is I will hear a chord change in a song and go, what is that? We were listening to Penny Lane by the Beatles. Penny Lane, there is a Bible with a photograph, which is Heart and Soul. Same chord progression. Same as Who Knows How Long I've Loved You. It's all 1, 6 minor, 2 minor, 5. All of it. But he goes, Penny Lane, there is a Bible with a photograph of every head he's had the pleasure to know. And I went, what is that? Because it's a 1 minor. He's in G and he plays a G minor for that. So the note is a minor third above where he's singing, and it's magical.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I love listening to songs to get inspired to write original stuff. It's one of the best ways.
And I love that we were watching an interview that you had done previously, and I loved how you talked about Broadway being an influence and musical theater and Richard Rodgers, and I was like, well, yeah, it totally makes sense. That's melody, man. If you're looking for melody, look no further.
I mean, Irving Berlin and George Gershwin and Cole Porter, they wrote fantastic melodies.
Yeah.
And also those lyrics, especially, I mean, when you get into Cole Porter, there's, the wit behind it. There's humor. Like, you're getting away with a lot. And that's my jam. That's where Pam and I really connect and found each other as songwriting companions. I love coming up with, slant lyrics and having them be a little off color, but really being traditional with our approach to melody and taking it very seriously.
Well, I read an interview of Cole Porter, obviously from a long time ago, but I read it recently, where he wasn't getting anything. He couldn't get a publisher and nobody was doing his songs. And he was friends with George Gershwin. And he said, how come you're getting all the songs and I'm not getting anything? He goes, you got to write Jewish. And he said, what do you mean? He goes, listen to klezmer songs. And what he was getting at is most Anglo-Saxon writers write using whole steps. Klezmer is half steps, like G to F sharp, G to G sharp, And it really, I started noticing all the songs that use, after that, all the Cole Porter songs had half steps in it. You give to me and I give.
There that is.
Yeah, so that's a diminished chord. And when I learned diminished chords and augmented chords, it changed the way I wrote. Completely.
I can't wait to learn bar chords and power chords. Because I've hit a wall with self-teaching and it's driving me mental. I'll
tell you what I did when I was a kid and my hands were too small to play a bar chord. I figured out if you played an F chord and just played the top 4 strings, that's the same as a bar chord. So if you play an F chord on the 3rd fret, it's a G.
Okay.
And then you play it on the 5th fret, it's an A. And it's cool to mess with your fingerings. If you pick up your index finger on the 5th fret, it makes a power chord.
Oh, Oh, see? In 2 seconds.
No, A, not C.
Oh, see, now I'm already screwed up.
This is part of your Skype lessons, right?
Yes. Do you still do songwriting lessons via
Oh, yeah.
Zoom? That's
That's
cool.
so cool. Yeah.
Where can people find out information on that or how to sign up for that?
On cliffeberhardt.net.
.net, everyone.
That's right.
Yeah, because some asshole copywrote the cliffeberhardt.com right when the internet started. They did to every musician.
You know, there's one good story I like about that, and that was Lisa Left Eye Lopez, rest in peace. She bought up a lot of her friends' domains at the time because she knew that a lot of executives and people not even in the industry were buying them up and reselling them at these astronomical prices.
I know.
And so she would go to the specific artists and be like, hey, I got your website. Like, it's yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
But if you just type in Cliff Eberhardt, it will come up.
That's
Good.
right.
You
Some
know.
other crazy things come up. No, I'm just
Cool. So get your education.
Well,
kidding.
Go ahead.
Tell us about new things.
That's a lot of it was from the play that I did out in Malibu.
Right. You were like a troubadour in it, right?
I was like the Greek chorus.
Greek chorus.
Cool.
It was based on a Greek play. It was based on a Sophocles play. But it was very much leaning towards anti-Trump, the play.
Yeah.
And this was 2019.
Oof.
So songs like the Lies That We Live With, he was campaigning at the time. And there's a giant lie in the play. So he said, you have to have a song about lying. And I would go take the bus into town every day to go to a coffee shop and write. So I wrote all the lyrics first in that one. And I came home and I was like, I can't seem to find anything that connects with lying. And I turned CNN on and the song was waiting there, you know, because of all the lying that was going on.
Yeah.
And the fact that we try to justify lying. So that was easy. That just came out, you know. So that one and Everyone's Wounded and Shake Hands with the Pain, a lot of those songs were from the play. And my friend Bill Morrissey had passed away, and I wrote a song about him that was just kind of hanging out, you know. And I'd gone to New York. Cornelia Street Cafe had closed.
Right, because they didn't make it through the pandemic, right?
It was before the pandemic that it closed.
Okay.
The landlord, somebody bought the building. They raised the rent from $4,000 a month to $33,000 a month.
Oh my God.
Well, that's half the village. It's closed. The village is closed, and they use it as a tax write-off. So it's still boarded up. The Cornelia Street Cafe, 6 years later, is boarded up still. But I was walking through the village, and there's no music stores anymore in the village. There's not a record store. Very few restaurants left. All the bread stores and cheese shops are gone. And so I wrote that song, Room in the City is the name of the song. And it's about like what's going to happen when you fire all the waitresses and laundry people and shop owners. Your money is not going to be able to buy you anything.
Right.
I mean, we're headed up Schitt's Creek without a paddle right now.
Yeah.
Especially if they take away Medicare. So that part of the equation is, I mean, I can see where things have to change. And maybe a two-party system doesn't work, but to make everybody over 65 homeless is going to be the biggest disaster that's ever happened.
I mean, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of death.
And they'll still be saying he's doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, I felt a little bit stronger yesterday when my little town, you know, hundreds of people showed up.
Yeah, that's honestly the parts to be
It's
focused on.
inspiring,
Yeah, what's coming out of it.
When's the next one? Was your status update today?
It's the 19th.
Okay.
Awesome.
It's Patriots Day.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the next day is the day they predict he's going to call for martial law. So we'll have Patriots Day followed by Fascism Day.
With everything going on in the world being so dark, do you find that your product, your music becomes dark as well?
I've written one song in the last year, and it was about school shooting, so that's pretty bright.
So there you go. Yeah.
But the juice for writing songs is not the same as it was when I was young.
Yeah.
I was basically trying out every night at these clubs, and I was trying to attract record companies and publishers. So I set up this thing when I was 25. I'd broken up with my girlfriend, and I was living alone in Little Italy in New York. And every day for 4 to 5 hours when I woke up, I would write.
Wow.
So I wrote hundreds of songs in that period of time. Most of the long road was written during that time. Then I had a record company for 25 years, and they call you on the phone every year. I go, where's the record?
Right.
And I had a publisher too. I had Cherry Lane Publishing, and a publishing deal is where they pay you a yearly salary and you give them 12 songs a year.
Yeah.
And so they would call and go, where are the songs? And I'm a slow writer,
You
but
can't rush genius.
it's not, it's just, I don't know. I get into a zone and that's when the songs come.
Well, I think it's interesting. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
And a time like this, I'm not in that zone very often.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm too anxious to let the genie out of the bottle.
Well, to talk about the zone and to talk about songwriting and different approaches to it, I think it's interesting. You brought up two kind of different ways. One was you do let inspiration kind of be the spark and wait for, as you said, the song to tap you on the shoulder. But you also just talked about a very regimented way of waking up every morning, going to the table, and I've heard great things about both methodologies. I feel that I am someone who, number one, I'm going to be honest, I do struggle with a little bit of holding myself accountable day to day with routine. But I'll also say that I feel like I am my best when I do have something to say, whether that be an inspiration or that song tapping me on the shoulder. Do you feel like those are two separate ways of looking at songwriting, or do you think they're
I think if you don't show up for the song will go somewhere else.
There you
Absolutely.
go. Yeah. Well,
so you have, I mean, I'm not a regimented person at all, but I mean, to sit down with a cup of coffee and a guitar every morning wasn't going to kill me.
Right.
And sometimes I just play other people's songs, and sometimes there was a song there. And also I have what I call it the song catcher. I will hear a phrase and go, oh, that's definitely going to be it. Like the song Unrequited. I was sitting in my apartment with my friend David, and his wife had just left him. And every time the phone rang, he'd go, is that Susan? Is that Susan? And finally I said, don't get too excited. It's just Unrequited. She's not in love with you. I went, you got to leave.
You got to get out. Get out.
This is coming out. Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that, or with plays, or like when I did 12 Songs of Good and Evil, I'd seen this movie of Hitler playing with a German Shepherd in his yard, and they're rolling around laughing. And I said, he had 1 ounce of good in him, and everybody has good and evil in them. One hopefully outshadows the other by a good percentage. But I started writing songs about people that had both, and that was fun for me to stay in that head of like, here's a guy that's robbing banks, but he's also giving money to poor people.
Yeah.
And you can't really judge a book by its cover. So I did that for a couple albums where I just had a theme. I did one called Borders, an album called Borders, that was all about either personal borders or physical borders.
I love Borders Over the Water. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I got to sing that song with you at a private gig.
You did. Yeah. We did that on this tour, and it silenced the audience.
Yeah.
Because it says powerful. The land of the free, and people are like, oh shit.
Yeah. But
I don't know. It's if Ricky Lee Jones says, if I was to really express how I write, I'd never write again. I think it's different for everybody. And sometimes the song is waiting for me, and sometimes I have to really squeeze it out.
And we've talked a little bit about co-writing, but do you find yourself to be a collaborative songwriter, or do you prefer to be like, I'm going to do my thing, we'll come together, but like I'm going to work on my stuff separately?
I've co-written, when I had a publishing deal, they used to send me to Nashville to co-write with country writers. Mm-hmm. And I had one good experience with a guy named Don Henry, who's still a really dear friend of mine. And the way we wrote was, he would write a verse and then go for a walk and say, no, you have at it. And so we were never in the same room at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Because I cannot write doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't. To me, it's like going to the bathroom sitting next to somebody,
Right.
That's
just
how we feel.
We welcome it.
I also, people are like, oh, I hate that line, and you're like, I've done stuff like, I've collaborated with Louise where I've written a bridge for her songs, but it's way after the song. I say, you need this, in the song. And it's usually a musical passage, not a lyrical passage.
Who's an artist that's passed away that you would have given everything to collaborate with?
Oh, so many.
Give me two.
Cole Porter and Irving Berlin.
Absolutely.
Good, excellent choices.
I don't know if I ever told you this story. This is a great story about songwriting. When I recorded the album, my record label didn't want me to play till the fall when they released it. And so they sent me a bunch of money to live on, but my manager stole it.
Whoa.
So I had to get a job. So I got a job painting apartments in New York. And every day I would go, it was up on Madison Avenue, I think. And every day I would go across the street and eat on the steps of a brownstone. And finally, this old lady comes out one day and she goes, "Why do you eat here every day?" And I said, "I clean up, you know." She said, no. She said, "I was just wondering, are you drawn to this place?" And so the hair on my neck started standing up. I said, "Why?" And she said, "Are you a songwriter?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "I'm Ira Gershwin's widow."
What?
Whoa.
True story.
What did you do? How did you respond?
She said, "You want to come in for a cup of tea?"
Oh.
Did you have paint all over you? I picture you with paint all over you.
I did. I had paint all over everything. And I went in and she was showing me, she had a box full of Ira Gershwin songs that were never set to music.
Wow.
And then she said, "You know, George lived upstairs." And she said, "Do you want to see his piano?" And I said, "Yeah." And we went upstairs.
When did you clean up the vomit?
No, it was wild. And Rhapsody in Blue was on the piano.
That's so New York. That's so effing New York.
And she said, "You want to play it?" And I said, "No, I want to touch it though."
Yeah.
You don't want Mr. Mittens playing George's piano. But...
Wow.
And I saw her a couple of times after that. She died pretty close to that time, but that meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because I was really pissed off and I didn't want to have a job. And I just signed a record deal and here I am painting apartments in New York. But it was kind of like you're going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, life is this, right? Life is highs and lows. And I think we sit there in the low and we go, it has to get better because it can't, right? It can't get worse.
Well, it has to get different.
Right.
Yeah. Everything changes.
Like I would say, people say, "Well, your dreams came true." I said, "Yeah, but I didn't picture wearing a clown suit."
Right.
You don't, nothing is the way you picture it, ever.
Yeah, I hold a 13-pound chihuahua who screams in my ear. Believe me, I know.
But I know
all of that.
You bring joy to millions of people, though. I mean, there is that part. Lightening people's lives is an important part of art.
Amen.
I did get a DM recently from a woman whose mother passed away of cancer. And she said that she would play the Casper and Pam videos for her during her chemotherapy, during her final stages. And it was the only thing that made her laugh. And to hear that is so, because I do my thing. It's silly. I don't think about stuff like that, as we're putting out this humor, but it's amazing the impact that can have on people. I just don't think of it that way.
I've had several people come up to me and say, "I listened to The Long Road when I was going through chemo." That's all I listened to.
Wow. Do you have any crazy stalkers from your past? Fans?
As I say, my stalkers have walkers.
Ooh,
hey, they stayed with you.
Yeah. There is a guy that wrote a country song after he heard me say that. So there is a song out there called
"All My Stalkers Got Them Walkers."
Yeah.
No, really.
I've had some pretty obsessed fans, but no real. I did have a woman break into my house once.
Oh.
Was it George Gershwin's widow?
No, she couldn't stand on the chair that she needed to get in through the window. No, I played in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and there was a woman there who was married with 7 kids, and she just decided that we were going to be together.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, police were involved.
Did you find her in the home, or was she?
Well, what happened was
there?
I went to go pick up my mail, and the guy who worked at the post office said, "I think I might have made a mistake." I said, "What?" He goes, "A woman came in here looking for your address, and I gave it to her."
That is a huge federal mistake, sir.
That's a mistake.
I said, "You're coming with me."
Yeah. Get him, Cliff.
That's right.
I'm only 4 doors down from the post office.
You thought dogs were your biggest fear? No.
So we came home and there was a window broken. And she was sitting on my couch and she said,
Just
I
call
know
me.
that you know that we're supposed to be together. And I didn't even know her name.
No.
Oh
No, no, no.
no. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So, I mean, there are crazy people out there.
Yeah.
That's true.
So speaking of the loves of your life, can you tell us a little bit about
Segue.
your dating? You've dated some pretty high profile people in your past.
Yeah.
Such a good pause. Such a good pause. Now, when I was an infant, when I was a little wee baby, you were with Amanda Plummer at the time, right?
Yeah.
And you guys were together for a little while, right?
Like 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So was that a bit of a roller coaster in the most positive way?
Oh, it was the most positive and most negative. I mean,
Yeah.
we were different. I learned more about art from her than anybody I've ever known.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah, she's really brilliant. And she was very much into art and poetry and music I hadn't heard, like opera. And so that was a big plus for me. The fame part, I've known so many people that I started out with that got real famous, and it changes you, and usually not in a good way.
Mm.
So I've lost a lot of friends to fame, and that's how I lost them. It wasn't that our relationship changed. It's just that when people get famous, their attitude towards the world changes.
Wow.
And they're not the same people.
Did you ever worry about that happening to you with people that were close in your life?
It did happen to me with people who were close in my life.
Yeah.
Amanda, for one.
But I mean, you skyrocketing, like, was that
Oh,
ever...
you have to have a desire for that to happen.
You never wanted to be famous.
No.
No.
Especially after I dated Amanda, when it got to the point where we couldn't leave the apartment. You couldn't go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Who wants that?
No.
It doesn't sound fun to me either.
No.
It really
But
doesn't.
as a songwriter, I like the anonymity of being the voyeur in the room.
Yeah.
If you want to, I love like hotel lobbies, like old fancy hotels. There's so much drama, like families checking in and the kids are excited, the father's pissed off and the mother wants to be somewhere else. And you get to see human nature in restaurants and in hotel lobbies. And
There's a whole album there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's insane. So if I was to be noticed.
Yeah, good point.
And it's also, the thing is, folk audiences don't idolize you. Like when I played with Richie, I would walk out to the audience wearing the same outfit I had on stage and nobody would recognize me. They were all watching Richie.
Wow.
And then most people do is they'll come up and say, oh, I saw you, in the 80s in New York. And that's the conversation. It's not like, oh my God, that doesn't happen.
Now, Amanda wasn't a musician. She was an actor first and foremost. But when you were with Sean Colvin, who is a musician, was that something exciting to be able to kind of collaborate with your partner?
Well, we had collaborated for years before we went out. We didn't go out all that long. And we were close after that, but she got famous.
Things happened, yeah.
What was that songwriting collaboration like? Was that in the same room, or was that...
You were around for Sunny Came Home, weren't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, that came out way, way later.
Oh.
She was working on her first album. And when she moved in, she hadn't written a song yet.
Oh, wow.
And then within a year or two, she was writing a lot, and then she got signed and won a Grammy. So
you were her muse.
I would doubt if she would say that.
But we can say that.
We can say that. Have you had a muse?
I've had many, but not a woman muse.
Yeah.
I mean, my first girlfriend that I broke up with when I was 25, or she broke up with me. I wrote a lot of sad songs after that. I was really brokenhearted. And I think there's only one time for that in your life, where I just grieved for 5 years. I didn't see anybody, and the next person I dated was Amanda.
Yeah.
And Amanda picked me, I didn't know who she was. I came down.
Her dad was huge, but she hadn't broken out yet. Yeah.
So was her mom. She was doing Agnes of God on Broadway when we met. And that's what made her a star, but she wasn't a star yet. you know. And one day she would follow me around. She was pretty much of a stalker. And I said, let's go out for coffee, you know, and talk this thing out. Because she was like, I want to be with you. I want to live with you. So we're sitting in the coffee shop, and she dressed kind of like a homeless person, but she was very dear. She was a really sweet girl. And I said, what do you do for a living? And there was a city bus parked outside with a picture of her in her habit for Agnes of God.
Wow.
And she just pointed at the bus. I went, holy shit. And I would say her fame and her excitement about her fame was very attractive to me at the time.
Sure.
You know, I was
Well, you
driving
were in your 20s, right? Or your early 30s?
I was 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was driving a cab.
That's right.
You know, I'd had no success, zero. And her mom was Tammy Grimes. So, you know, the family was very famous. She was a famous Broadway actress.
Oh, okay.
Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Okay, there it is. Yeah.
Blythe Spirit. You know, all
Blythe
that
Spirit.
We broke up when she was doing Pulp Fiction.
Wow.
Oh, you guys were together for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I was on the set of the movie The Fisher King.
Oh wow.
I'm in the big dance scene in Grand Central Station. I can't find me in it.
That's cool.
Yeah, Terry Gilliam, who was the director, said, we need extras. I said, I have no desire to be an actor. You know, he goes, we just need extras. And I was like, he goes, Tom Waits is going to be in the scene. I went, okay.
Well, Uncle Cliff, we have kept you for way too long.
I'd like to be kept.
You like to be kept. This has been so great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Listen, to ask an artist to talk about themselves for an hour is not a strain on the artist.
I knew you were going to say something like that. I knew it.
We'll save that. That'll be the hook at the end. Yeah.
All right. I love you so much. I miss
I
you
love
so
you too.
much.
So
I
good to
would
talk
love
to you,
to
Cliff.
see you.
Absolutely.
Good
Let me
luck
know when you're in LA, if you're in LA performing.
We were in Monterey and Berkeley this year, but we
Too
never make
far.
it to LA. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Love you guys. Louise, it was good to hear your voice.
Okay, thanks so much. Cheers.
We'll be
Good to hear
reaching
you.
out. We'll be
Okay.
reaching out to schedule an
All right.
interview.
Bye.
All right.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Casper's Song Zoo is a podcast that you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. We're also hosting on our website, www.casperandpam.com. We're excited to do more interviews with singers and songwriters, and we're also looking forward to writing more original songs. Casper's Song Zoo is produced by Pamela Eberhardt and Daniel Testa. And Casper. Of course, Casper.